just to make sure that you understand, he works at the state level of government, not at the national level of government. And he has agreed to come and talk to you today about his job and kind of his interest in politics. So please be a good listener. If you will put your phone away, you can take pictures at the end of the class period. If you got it out, just turn it face down. And give him your attention because we have a very limited amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, can you give me a 5-minute warning? Thank you. Well, I apologize for being late, first of all. My name is Edgar Flores. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I represent Assembly District 28. That's northeast Las Vegas for any of you who know the Las Vegas area. And this is my second session. I am also the chairman of the Government Affairs Committee. And Government Affairs, just everything that involves cities, our counties, our state agencies, how they interact with one another, that's what I'm the chairman of. So every time they have issues, and they fight all the time, by the way. If you want to see some fun fights, you got the cities fighting each other over boundary lines, over who's getting what money. So it's very fascinating to be a part of that. But it's also very normal. Difficult conversations, and that's where I want to start this topic. Difficult conversations is very normal in life. We have a natural tendency to shy away from that. Every time we're in conflict, there is a natural tendency to shy away from it. But it's very normal. It is a process of life. In fact, if you're not surrounded by difficult conversations, that means you're probably not surrounded by the right people. Because we need to be challenged in life. You all know, everybody knows Kevin Hart, right? We all know Kevin Hart. The way he does comedy is by telling stories. He tells you a little bit about his life, but it's funny. And that's the way I like to break down my lessons, just through my personal experiences. So I want to start off with my family. And by the way, when we talk about ourselves, I invite all of you to always start with your family. Because that means you recognize that where you stand is in gratitude is because someone gave something to you. No one got this for free. Nobody got here for free. Nothing you have is free. Somebody has done something for you in order for you to have the privileges you have now. So when I talk about me, I talk about my family. My father, the eldest of 7, his father walked out on him. So that meant my father became the man of the house at a very young age. He grew up in a household where they didn't have the privilege of an education because they had to pay the bills. So my father, when he was in 1st grade, dropped out of school. And he started working to help feed his family. After that, my father was born in Mexico. He came to the U.S. to look for something better. And by the way, I don't want to get into an immigration conversation. I'm just trying to give you his lens of why he came here. He grew up in a house where he was a man of the house in 1st grade. And he needed something better. So when he got a little bit older, he said, I need to leave. Because I want to be able to offer my family more than my father offered me. And he arrived in Las Vegas. So my father arrived here. He didn't speak a word of English. He had a kindergarten education. He had no money. But, and here it comes, right? My father always taught me to measure people, not by where they stand in life, but by the process. Let me explain what that means. How do we typically gauge success? I'm going to point at you. You tell me one way we gauge success. How do we gauge it? When you see somebody, what is it something you're looking for to know if they're successful?
Money.
Money. Throw another word at me. How do we gauge success? Money's one.
Clothes.
Clothing. What else?
Vocabulary.
Vocabulary. All right, those are all good. So, if we gauge my father through that lens, he didn't have money, he didn't have a lot of vocabulary, and he didn't have nice clothing. But what if you were born with all 3 of them? And 10 years later, you still got the same thing. Where is your success there? We are so accustomed to, because everything around you tells you the way we measure success is by where they stand now. And that is a fallacy that's been instilled upon you. And by the way, that's the way we manipulate you. Because the whole world is telling you that you're not good enough, that you don't look good enough, that you don't meet the standard. And nobody takes into account your growth. If you measure my father by where he stood with money, clothing, and vocabulary, he wouldn't be all that successful. But if he told you that he grew up in a house with 6 brothers and sisters, no father, that he made it to the U.S., that he made sure that his kid had everything he needed in life, that he never backed down, that he never quit, that he worked 3 minimum wage jobs always, that he never had a day off in his life, and that he's still standing and he's not ashamed, that his head is held high, that he's had his fights, but he's here, then all of a sudden that man is very successful. It is the way we must measure ourselves and we measure our family. Never be ashamed of where you come from. Never be ashamed of where your family stands. And I see it all the time. I talk to schools all the time. I talk to students, and there's some shame. You know, I got some drama in my family. Me too. And there's a little bit of shame in that. Never be ashamed of where you come from. Success is your journey in life. Don't compare where you stand as a human being to somebody else. Compare your journey. The fact that you haven't quit. If you're struggling in school and somebody else isn't, but you're still standing, good. Success. Success is your process in life. So lesson number 1, never be ashamed of where you come from, and measure people by their journey and not by where they stand. And by the way, that's the way you got to measure yourself too. Second lesson, and it's the thing that my family never lets me forget. Nothing here is free. They always tell me, earn this, and I'll tell you what that means. If you're a woman in here, you understand that at some point women were knocking down walls in order for you to have a right to sit in this very classroom or sit in this library, because a seat was not offered to you. Women had to do a lot in order for you to have that right to this seat. If you come from an impoverished area, people had to fight for that because education hasn't always been free or accessible to all. You want to talk about race, gender, etc., etc.? There have been people for generations fighting for you to have a right to what you have now. And we could expand that. When we talk about what our American values are or what the American dream is, people have died and fought in order for us to have the rights we have here now. We are not entitled to them because we've done nothing for them yet. People that came before us, our families, our parents, they have been doing so many sacrifices for us. We have to recognize them and know that nothing is free. With me, my father did a job for a lot of years in his life that he hated. My mother was a maid, cleaning hotels in Las Vegas for a living. Now, how many people think my mom would wake up every morning and say, I'm going to go scrub toilets? I'm so excited about that. Probably not, right? Probably not. My mom got surgery on her knees, on having to be on her knees scrubbing toilets for so many years. We all know that they hate doing that. And a lot of us, you don't have to raise your hand, but a lot of us have parents who do jobs they hate. Who do they do them for? Us. They do them for us. How many people have been to a graduation here? Yeah? Who's the loudest in the graduation? Is it the student graduating or the family?
The family.
The family. You know why? Because when you're walking across that stage, and by the way, every single one of you must graduate. There is no alternative to maybe. It's okay if it takes a little bit longer or whatever, but you must graduate. Here's why. When you walk across that stage like I did, and by the way, I was the first one in my family to graduate, so it was a big deal, right? And when I walked across that stage and parents cry, you seen that? Yeah. Sometimes parents cry. They get real emotional, and we don't get it. I'm like, I just graduated high school. And you don't get it, but you know why they cry and why it's such a big deal? Because to them, they remember everything they've endured and say it was worth it. They remember waking up every day to a job they hated and seeing you graduating and saying it was worth it. They remember having bosses they hated and saying it was worth it. They remember the fact that maybe they put some stuff aside in order to take care of family because family is that was their job. You was their job. And they said, I'm going to put everything aside for you. And they see you graduate, it was worth it. You must graduate. Because if you don't, you understand all that crap they've endured was for absolutely nothing. If you can't give them the benefit of looking at you and saying, thank you, it was worth it. That is your obligation to your family. It is your responsibility to them. And by the way, here's another reason you got to graduate. I'm going to put some deep stuff on you, but here's why. Here's why you got to graduate. It's the way we live and build communities. People always talk about that, but they don't define that for you. Let me explain it for you. When I graduated, so by the way, outside of being what I do in this building as a Nevada State legislator, I'm a lawyer. And let me tell you why that's relevant to this conversation. When my family has a legal problem, who do they go to? Me, right? If I was a doctor and they needed some cure or they needed for me to do some type of diagnosis, they would come to me. And what I do is then take the institutional knowledge that I got on how to be a lawyer, and I give that to them for free. And guess what? The moment I became a lawyer, my mom became a lawyer. My dad became a lawyer. My aunts became lawyers because I take this information here and I give it to them. And next time somebody comes around and asks them a question, my mom's like, I don't even got to talk to my son. I know the answer. He's already broken that down for me. That's how we grow communities. The moment you become something in life, your whole community around you becomes that too. It is your responsibility to become something because that's your gift to your community. Everybody says be selfish, be selfish. You hear that all the time, right? Be selfish. The more selfish you are on yourself and your success, the better your community is for it. To be selfish is for you to be empowered and to be able to give something back to your community, to your family. We're good with that? Does that make sense? All right. I got 4 more minutes, one last lesson, and then I'm going to open it up for questions so we can do 5 minutes of questions. All right. So we talked about earning it. We talked about never being ashamed of who you are. We talked about recognizing where you come from, understanding our challenges. Here's the next part of it. I get that it is not easy. Right? We're talking about very difficult things here, about not quitting. Because just because you do what I just told you, that doesn't guarantee you success in life. I get that. Well, this guy comes in here and talks about not giving up, recognizing family, and then he leaves and expects like my life is going to be somehow better. I don't. But I do want to give you one lesson, one little lesson about success that is applicable to everybody in this room. Very simple. How many of you have been in the process, or not been in the process, you've all been through the process, you'll see what I'm talking about. How many of you have watched, in the last couple of years, a baby go through the process of learning how to walk? Maybe you have a younger brother or sister, maybe your older siblings have kids, maybe you've seen nephews or cousins or something, right? A baby. And how many of your parents recorded you in the process of learning how to walk? Did any of your parents do that? Go back and watch it sometime. Go back and watch that, and I'll explain why. The process of learning how to walk isn't easy. We all admit that, right? I mean, the first thing you learn how to do is just hold your head up, right? I mean, that's hard for a baby. You know, bobblehead, right? Yeah, we've seen that. But then just holding themselves up is hard. They first have to crawl, and then after that, they hold on to everything, yes? We all went through this process. You're holding on to everything and trying to hold yourself up and your little legs can't hang. And you fell on your butt, yes? And some of us cried. We fell so many times trying to learn how to walk that we cried. But we didn't quit. If there was a baby in this room right now, and we put that baby, and I want you to imagine you as an infant, and we put you as an infant in here, and we all stood around and said, you will never learn how to walk. You will never learn how to walk. Would you, the infant, listen? No? Why not? Why? Why? Why would that baby not listen? If the answer is simple, why?
They don't understand.
They don't understand. They don't understand. If someone says you can't do something as a baby, you don't understand words. In fact, if we stood around the baby would look around, you would look around and say, they're doing that, maybe they're saying I should do that too. Even if we were saying the opposite, because we don't understand words. Here's where I break it up, because we're in a school. You believe in God, you call it God. You believe in science, you call it science. You are biologically engineered, or it is your God-given right, whichever one applies to you, to look around and say, they're doing something and I want to do it too. It is the way you are made from the moment you are born and brought into this world. To look around you and say, I want that too. And you are biologically engineered to figure it out. It is your God-given right to say, I want to do it too. And you did it. You put yourself through that process and you learned how to walk. You cried in the process. You did it 1,000 times. You fell, but you never gave up. Because that is the way you are made. The problem is we learned the words along the process. And all of a sudden somebody said you weren't good enough. You weren't made for that. That's not for you. That's not traditionally how it works. And you believed it. That is how we control people. Words. Everything around you. Every marketing commercial you see on TV, every movie, everything around you is telling you you are not good enough. And I am here to remind you that you were born to do whatever the heck you want to do in this world. That if you love something and say, I want that you have a God-given right, you are biologically engineered to fight for that and become whatever it is you want in this world. I'm not here to tell you what that is. It is the way you are made. So when we talk about success, that's how it works. You take that little baby inside of you that we all got inside of us. That little baby that's stronger than you, by the way, that's stronger than me. Because that baby doesn't understand words, just understands action. And you take that baby and you throw it in front of you and say, I don't know how far you can go, but let's figure it out. I don't know how far you can do this, but you show me where my limit is. That is success. Simplified to its purest biological form. Simplified to what it really is. Not to what everybody else will tell you. Not to a piece of paper when somebody talks about leadership and points at a bunch of words. It's inside of you. You were born with it. It is your God-given right. We good with that?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to open up for a few questions.
Wow.
Lawyer, a politician, want to talk about life? I'm good with it. Anything, I'm an open book, I promise. Whatever you want to throw at me, I'm good. We have like 2 or 3 minutes, and I apologize for being late. We would have had more time. But any questions you may have? Otherwise, I'll go into another lesson. You don't want to hear it. All right.
Do you have a YouTube account?
Excuse me?
Like a YouTube account?
Do I have a YouTube account? No, I don't know. Should I? All right. You just inspired me to
Are
get
you
a
on
YouTube account.
any other social network?
Excuse me?
Are you on any other social
I am on Facebook and on Twitter. If you look me up under just my first and last name, Edgar Flores, NV, that's how you can find me on Facebook. Edgar Flores, NV. Yes?
When did you decide you wanted to go become Assemblyman Carson?
Oh, so just real quick, and all of you will relate to this. When we talk about age, there is a disconnect between generations in that building. And everybody's going to tell you that you are not ready because you need more experience in life when you go into that building. And I will tell you that you need to take your perspective in there. Because if you're not part of the conversation, people are deciding for you. That's why it's so important for you to be at the table. And you know, sometimes you're quiet. Being at the table doesn't mean you have to be speaking. Being at the table sometimes means all you do is listen. Because you're listening to what people are saying about you. You deserve to be part of those conversations. One last question. I saw a hand. I know we have 1 more minute. Last question, please.
Did you graduate high school in Las Vegas?
I did, yes.
Which high school?
So, do you know Valley High School or Silverado High School?
Yeah.
Right there. I was zoned for one school and I went to the other one. But yeah.
So it was Valley?
No, I was zoned for Valley and I went to Silverado, which is further north, south, excuse me. Anybody else? Question, last one. How old are you? I'm 30. I'm 30.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I got into the Nevada State Legislature, I was 27 years old. I was 27 years old when I first got in. Yes.
Edgar Flores, NB.
Yeah, NB as in Nevada.
Okay.
Edgar Flores, NB. Yeah.
Okay.
Question? The last question is if we get paid as assemblymen, yes, but we get paid almost or probably less than minimum wage. Don't do it for money. Take care. Thank you.